Welcome to part 2 of my MITS alloy bed tray and canopy upgrade. Now on the last video I worked with Asheville Vehicle Outfitters to get the tray on, and my second stop for being in Asheville was going to head up to Ujoint Off-Road, and the plan at Ujoint was originally just to upgrade the Jeep with one of their new Gladiator specific roof racks. Now I'll have a full video on that rack, but I ended up spending a little bit more time at Ujoint doing some mods and upgrades to this bed. Now I need to preface a few things here. Number one, Ujoint Off-Road specializes in Ford E-Series vans. They make them four-wheel drive, they make full send-out like bolt-on conversions, they build them in-house, they've got bumpers, racks, you name it. Ford E-Series is all they do. The reason I was lucky enough to get my Gladiator in there to get worked on is quite simply, I've been friends with the owner of Ujoint Off-Road since 2007. He said, look, this bed's super awesome. Anything I can do to help, just let me know. I told him my concerns about trying to cycle my 4D and where it was hitting at the bottom of the rail. He looked at it with some of his guys and said, that's no big deal. We can trim this out, build you a fender, and send you on your way. And I said, oh, well, if you guys are willing to do it, that's awesome. They work with aluminum all the time. They were very confident that they could get the powder coated to match and basically make a seamless mod. I think it's important to note that I've been running 3 inches of lift in 40s for quite some time, and it works really well. One of the challenges with being that low is the fact that you do drag the belly a little bit, but for just about everywhere except like extreme rock crawling, being low with a big tire is fantastic. It makes the Jeep very practical. I've been happy with how it works. And one of the reasons that I was able to be so low lift and such a big tire is that I split the factory Rubicon flare. So that gave me a lot of room for the tire to cycle. Now, I knew going with a tray bed, there was going to be some challenges there because I just really had a low amount of lift and a 40-inch tall trail grappler. So I had a feeling I might have to modify it. I didn't know how much. I also knew that having these Dynatrac axles built to 72.5 inches and having basically an overall track width of about 88 inches, it was going to be much different than how these tray beds were going to be designed for a factory width Gladiator. So I already knew kind of going into this could be a possibility. When I got it to Ujoint and we cycled it, it was pretty obvious that I was still going to hit the rail when this tire cycled off-road. So I really had two options. Cut it up the bed or try to raise the truck and then raise the bump stop so I still got some up travel. And I didn't want to raise it. I just feel like it just kills the practicality of having something like this super tall. Again, I know this is not going to be extreme rock crawler. I mean, I just got done doing the Rubicon Trail with it and it did fine. I scraped the belly a whole bunch on it because it's long and low, but I'm really not going to try to do any extreme rock crawling with this. I'm still going to wheel it, but even if you make these things super tall, you're still fighting a very long wheelbase. So to me, it just doesn't make sense to have this thing driving around look like it's a big circus wagon when I can keep it low, have it functional, and all I needed to do is do a little trimming. The first thing we needed to do was trim out the lower portion of the tray. This is not a structural part of the bed and it hangs down just a few inches. So we didn't have to worry about bracing it, nor were we concerned about coming back into this spot to reinforce it. Once the main section was trimmed out, we cycled the suspension to ensure that it would clear. Thankfully it did, and the only spot that we found that we were now rubbing was on the rear toolbox. Given the box is actually adjustable, all we had to do was trim a small portion off of the back of the bed so we could move the box back just about an inch and still be able to open it properly. With the lower toolboxes now in place, we could start work on the custom fenders. The goal here was not only to mask our cut line, but to mimic the fender style that MITS had originally intended to work with the bed. Now, once our measurements were input into the computer, we used a plasma table to start the initial build of the fenders. The pieces were then removed and cleaned, and then we used a CNC press brake to get all of the angles exactly how we wanted them. Now, after tweaking the fenders a few times, we were ready for the final set to be TIG welded and set in place for one last look. Now, anchoring the aluminum fenders in place, we would use 2 existing mounting holes on the side of the bed, along with drilling a new one which was through bolted. The lower portion of the flare would be bolted in 2 places by the toolbox using weather-tight hardware. The forward portion of the flare would receive an additional brace to ensure there wouldn't be any issue with movement. On the driver's side, we also needed to create a mount for the fuel filler neck. This would essentially be another piece of aluminum that would ultimately tie in using the bottom of the tray's existing T-nut style rack system. One thing that we noticed after we cut the bed was that the gap between the top of the frame rail and the bottom of the bed was now more pronounced. To clean this up, Ujoint built some aluminum gap guards that would use nut certs to secure each panel in place. This cleaned up the side of the bed tremendously. Now, one thing that I was really excited that we were able to carve some time out for was to build a new receiver hitch. Given the bed is so much more high clearance, I didn't want to reuse the stock receiver that hung down considerably lower. To create something that was strong and visually appealing, Ujoint cut out a section of 2x4 steel tubing and then crafted custom braces that would allow it to bolt to where the original receiver mount locations were. Now, this setup would not only give me a solid set of recovery points, but Ujoint positioned the Frenched-in receiver in a way that in the event that Jeep did drop off a large ledge, it would impact the receiver first and not the bed. Now, something that had to be modified that was inside of the Canopy was my Clearview Easy Slide Portable Fridge Lowering Slide. And the reason this was is because our new high-lined fender that we made was much higher than the original setup. And what we found is that it was interfering with the fridge slide when it dropped out. The end result of all of this hard work is not only a completely functional bed that fits my Jeep's unique needs, but one that does not look modified to the untrained eye. So I want to talk a little bit about the canopy setup. So this canopy is completely removable from the tray. I think it's like 4 bolts and it comes undone. These holes that you see on the side of here are for a canopy jack, so you can lift it right off, drive the truck out from underneath of it, then you just have this cool flatbed. On the driver's side, I didn't do a ton of drawers or anything like that. I wanted at least one side of this to be fairly open. I felt like that was going to fit really my needs a lot better. It does have these tracks that run throughout it, so you can set it up kind of any way you need to. I like the fact that it is divided, kind of keeps everything, you know, nice and straight. Up there will probably end up just being my spare parts stuff where I carry like spare brake lines, U-joints and things like that I have in these bags. So that's sort of my thought process, where I'm not going to be reaching up there a whole bunch. So that's kind of how I wanted to lay it out. The side boxes here, they do have seals on them, and I have found they actually seal fairly well. You actually have a fair amount of room in each side of them, so that's really nice. It kind of gives you, especially like if you need a place for dirty storage, in terms of like taking the kids out to the beach, those things are going to end up being very helpful for just like sandy, wet clothes and stuff like that. I'll just toss them in those boxes. They're not going to be that hard to clean out, so that's going to work out very well for me and my kids. Back of the canopy, obviously I have my full-size spare, which I used a motorcycle ramp to get up here. Hopefully I don't have to change that out anytime soon. And I've got a 5-gallon jerry can holder. Now, what I really like about the back of this thing more than anything is this drawer. It's an excellent use of basically wasted space, and you've got a 5-foot long drawer with a removable lid that you can kind of change spots to have a different work area. And I love this. This is maybe one of my favorite features on this deal. It's completely sealed like the side boxes are, so you don't get any junk back here. It's got plenty of room that I can put our camping foldable toilet and all that stuff back here, stuff that you might need, especially if you've got small children, quickly. And I think that's going to be super convenient. I'm probably going to put some sort of divider in here and maybe some anti-slip material like you'd have in a toolbox to put some of my tool bags back here and impact and things like that. For me, I'm not a very tall guy, so I like that this gives me a very low workable space. You know, this is really one of my favorite features. Okay, so the passenger side of this is definitely a little bit busier than the driver's side, and let me give you a quick rundown of how I have it set up. So one of the things I really wanted was one of the MITS drawer systems. I just thought it was going to be really nice to have some type of drawer inside of the Jeep, just for a handful of reasons. Now, I will tell you, I'm 5'6", and this drawer is really tall. It's not terrible, but it's a little challenging to get in and out of. I got to spider monkey it a little bit, especially for the stuff in the back. So I'll probably end up carrying some type of small step stool. It just is what it is. It does have this tray at the bottom. I really like this. It's lockable. It's not gonna, you know, go anywhere. My kids aren't super tall right now, so I'm not really worried about them bonking their heads on it. But this is a good, another easy work area, setting up drinks, making lunch and stuff like that. So if you don't want to pull out the back drawer system, you have this. One of the things that I really like about the top is that it has a flat deck that has a little bit of a ridge on it, so you can set stuff up there. But even better, you can tie down things in the back. And for now, what I'm using that for is a place to home my EcoFlow, which are portable, basically battery generators. Beside that, I have my Clearview Easy Slide, and this thing's pretty cool. I didn't realize, to be honest with you, it was going to be so big. It takes up a lot of room, but it is a very well-designed feature, and you can put a huge fridge freeze in here. And the way it works is you simply unlatch it, pull these two yellow handles out, bring it out till it clicks, and then you have another yellow lever to push on, and then you can drop it down, and now you can more easily access beverages and things like that. I've put both my rough country cooler and the ARB in it. Both are really easy and kind of almost swimming in here. It just has so much room. It does have their cable saver that keeps the wire out of the way, and I haven't had any problems with that. If I want to take this thing out, it really wouldn't be that big of a deal. It actually bolts in using the tray system, just like on the other side, and it's 4 bolts. We've already had it out because we had to modify it to clear this fender, obviously, so that really wasn't that big of a deal. I still need to figure out what I'm going to do for lighting, like canopy lighting for when I open this up. I just didn't know what I was going to do power-wise when I ordered this thing originally. And so I'm still kind of, you know, figuring out. Now that I know that the EcoFlows sit up there really easily and securely, I'll probably do something that just hooks into those. I think that'll be just the easiest thing. It's not hard to reach these handles. Everything is covered, so you don't have a bunch of exposed hardware there. If you have a Tacoma, I know they make it where you can sync up your key fob to these to lock. I didn't see that option for the Gladiator. Maybe they have it now. Everything comes with keys, not really that big of a deal to me. Everything's got gas struts, so it opens and closes very easily, and overall, I really like this setup. Now, to give you an idea of just how much more clearance I have over my previous configuration, from the bottom of the receiver to the ground, I'm at 31 inches. That's a full 8 inches higher than what my factory setup is. So that's a huge gain. In terms of the corner boxes, I'm 7 inches higher than what it was. Now, these boxes are tapered, so it obviously gets a little bit worse ground clearance wise as it moves towards the tire, but it's still higher than what it was from the factory. The big thing here, 8 inches. That is going to be a lot off-road, and hopefully I'm not going to be hitting the receiver as much as I used to. Another handy feature that's definitely out of the way is my 8-gallon water board. It sits right at the front of the bed. It is a BPA-free tank, so you can actually put drinking water in it, and it already comes plumbed. It's a nice gravity-fed system that's going to be very useful for me and my needs. Now, one question I have gotten a lot of since putting on the bed is, how does it drive? And the honest answer is, it really feels like you have a load in the bed. You know, not drastically different than what it was originally. I did end up going up 2 clicks with my low speed compression reservoirs on my Fox shocks out back. That seemed to really take care of that extra weight. Dobinson springs have been fine. I don't have any complaints with them. They seem to ride okay. In terms of power and fuel economy and, you know, overdrive, still able to keep 8th gear on the highway. It's still averaging around 13.5 miles per gallon. The power and braking, all that seems pretty same. It's not drastically different. Maybe that'll change when I put like a rooftop tent up top and, you know, start adding any more weight. But right now, not a drastic difference. The one big thing visually for me inside of the cab is because the bed is a little bit wider than the body of the Gladiator, I had to turn my mirrors out a bit more. I will end up doing some type of like RV style mirror where the rear view mirror is basically a camera that I can mount at the back of the Jeep to help me see a little bit better. My backup camera right now is pretty small. I kind of got it tucked out of the way. So I'd like to have something that I can just glance up and continuously see. I think that would be very helpful. The build quality on this thing is really far exceeded my expectations. You know, all the welds look really good. The powder coating is super solid. All the metal work is just really nice on this thing. If you want to know anything more about these beds, you know, be sure to contact either Mule Expedition Outfitters. That's who this one was ordered from. You can also, if you're an East Coast guy like me, Asheville Vehicle Outfitters are now distributing these things. So you got a couple options there. You can check out obviously MITS Alloy's website. And you know, I like it. I'm stoked on it. I can't wait to get some long-term testing and continual upgrades on how I'm going to configure this thing. So I got plenty to do. I hope everyone is doing well, and I hope to see you guys on the trail soon. So take care. Bye-bye.